Hello there. It's the two of us today. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll see who else shows up. I'm going to go ahead and start with a meditation. So if you're driving, you don't have to close your eyes, but just begin to settle in. Take a big, deep breath in and sigh it out. Another big, full, deep breath in and release. Now tune into your senses, noticing the temperature and texture of air on your skin. Become aware of any taste that's present in your mouth. Noticing the smells that are coming to you. Becoming aware of what you see in your mind's eye. Lights, colors, shapes. Noticing the sounds around you, the sounds inside of the space you're in, the sounds outside of the space you're in. Acknowledge it all and let it be. Take a moment to set your intention for our time together today. Holding that intention in your mind's eye. And then when you're ready, let it go. And opening your eyes and coming back to this place from wherever it is that you just went. And I would love for you to just take a moment to, you might not be able to journal right in this moment, but just take a moment to reflect on the past week. How did your morning pages go? How did your artist dates go? So just take a moment to think through how your morning pages went, how your artist dates went. And I would love to hear who wants to share first, how your morning pages went, how your artist date went. Sarah, can I call on you?
Yeah. So for morning pages, I have, like I said, I've been waking up a little bit earlier, um, which has actually been really great for my sleep schedule because I'm making sure to get enough sleep so that I can do that
Mm.
and journaling for a little bit. And it's hit or miss whether or not it wakes up the toddler, but she's been pretty good at just lying there with me while I'm journaling in bed.
That's
Um,
great.
but I find it to be that is you. She just said, that's me. I find it to be a really good way to start the day. Like somehow it grounds me inside of myself, whereas usually I have sort of a like, not a person who hits the snooze button. So like the moment my alarm rings, I'm like out of bed, go, 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 get the kids, do this, so I like having that space to just ground into myself.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me. Thank you. What about, did you do an artist date?
I didn't do a specific artist date, but I've been, and some of this came from the chapter, but I have been really sort of slow rolling my runs. So I do a
Mm.
20-minute run every day. And I have been like purposefully, like if I see something, I will stop and like look at it and,
Mm.
really absorb whatever beautiful thing I saw to sort of fill up my well that way.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. Elva, how about you?
Yeah, I artist morning pages, consistent, love them. It's a great cleansing, focus. I just love everything about it. I have not done an artist date this week. I've just been I've had a lot of health stuff going on that I've been really distracted with. I torn meniscus and some
Mm.
crazy stuff going on with my blood work. I've just been distracted, so I haven't done as much in that area. I've used I'm in my morning pages to write about stuff about that, right? Just
Mhm.
to kind of get it out so so I don't catastrophize and think that I'm gonna die tomorrow or something like that. But so it's been beneficial. So yeah, I need to do some self-care artist date stuff. So I'll work on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That will help with getting out of your
Yeah.
head and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'm
Hmm.
sorry you're going through that. Yeah. Kristen. Hi.
Hello. Um, Morning pages have been interesting for me because I know the short story is I think that I've kind of been avoiding them because I really, really need them.
What
And
happens?
so I mean I have been getting to the not consistently, not and like stuff that I have been working through some stuff, you know, so it's not like a complete write-off, but I can sense that like I'm intentionally not doing them. Um and that brings like so the artist date is kind of like my whole life is kind of an artist date for me right now in the sense that I've always thought of like self-care as part of artist dates. And I'm like taking that time to figure out like do I need to have, you know, I'm just in a state of transformation.
Yeah.
Um and I've been really working on practicing being gentle and being gentle with myself and okay because I get all of the guilt and all of the like things I should be doing instead of
Mhm.
doing this. And it's been good. I've been doing a lot of art, following tutorials. I haven't, but I've been painting like every day.
Mm, that's great. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing all of that. Yeah. Um, you said you're in a state of transformation. I'm writing that down because it's beautiful. Okay, so this week was chapter 11, and chapter 11 is recovering a sense of autonomy. So I want to give you guys a moment to just think back about what you read, flip through the chapter, what stood out to you, what did you highlight, what did you underline. I'm going to set the alarm for just a couple minutes here, and I'll give you a moment to really reflect on that. And then I'll just call us back and see what everyone is up to. All right. What stood out to you about chapter 11?
The two things that stood out to me in particular was definitely the section about exercise, because I have not really been able to put into words the fact that like I need to run regularly, like every day. And I'm not super fit and I'm not super fast, but like the whole point is just to like sort of, I mean, I don't know, it's weirdly getting out of my head and into my head at the same time. Like getting out of my way, I guess, but getting into like thinking through, I don't know, not always problem solving, but just sort of thinking through issues in my life more clearly. And then the other part was sort of how she kept referring to like, if you don't create, you get crabby. I can't remember exactly how she worded it. And sort of that loop of like, oh, I have to take care of others, so I don't have time for this. But really, I'm really shitty at taking care of others when I'm in a foul mood because I didn't take care of myself, and like that sort of cycle there.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. That was rich stuff right there. Yeah. What else about this chapter?
When I first started reading it, I was a little bit irritated because I felt like it was focused on an artist, the actual an artist with your, whether it's your art or whatever. Like it felt like it was really about like really focused on being an artist in the,
Capital A.
yeah, yeah. And so I was feeling annoyed with that, but then as I kept reading, then it sort of went into more of the creative parts of who I am. And so then that helped me kind of, okay, get past being irritated with that first part, talking about money and your art. It was just kind of, but then that really helped me because, I still struggle with that, but it really helped me start when she talked about connecting to the child within
Mm-hmm.
and that creative part of yourself as the child within. That was helpful. And so I think I'm starting to understand that I was born with that creativity. And I loved how she talked about it's a gift and, a gift from higher power, whomever. I love that. Um, and then I also felt like, and this is a little, I'm not going to say scary, but I didn't anticipate this. I finished the chapter wondering if what I've been focused on and what I think is a calling is more up from up here than down in here.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've been talking a lot about yoga therapy and Ayurvedic medicine and da 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 da. And then I was like, well, is that from here or is it here? And so I think reading this made me take a pause to say, how often do I listen to what's here?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And do I even know how to do that?
Yeah. And Dwinelva, just to all of the healing stuff that I've been doing is saying that we should be focused here
Yeah,
because like 90% of like the neurons that are up here are actually connected to right here anyway. Like there's the heart brain connection is
right,
really strong,
right.
and that it is all in the heart. It's all about the heart. So I'll be very curious to see when you start in more to hear what wants to come out.
Mm,
Maybe
yeah,
it will be the same, maybe it won't, you never
right,
know.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Kristen, how about you? What about what's coming up from this chapter?
My head is I'm still processing what Funava just said. I'm just like, and the like how to listen to hear more. Um, this chapter hit me a little different than it might hit other people, but it hit hard because it's on point for exactly what I'm kind of struggling with right now. So like yeah, like there was one on my page 182, to kill your dreams because they're irresponsible is to be irresponsible to yourself.
Mhm.
Because I'm trying to decide, like, do I make this great big do I quit the corporate world and, you know, or maybe not even quit? Do I just take a year off to be with my kids more? And I can. I'm just afraid to. And I'm
Mhm.
afraid of like what it'll look like on the other side of that because I'm walking away from this. And then like the next piece, and it's funny because one of the meditations and affirmations I have has the word success in it. And I was meditating this morning and I was like, what is success to me?
Mm.
Like, how do I, like, what does that even mean to me? And so when it came up in here again, and the whole like when you get there, there disappears because it's always just the next thing. And so, and again, like connecting to Dwanelva, like I'm always thinking about, okay, if I don't do what I'm doing now, like what can I do instead? And is it instead to make money? Is it instead to keep my brain and heart and soul active? Is it, you know, and then I connect it to I think it was the Big Leap. Is
Mhm.
that the one that talks about like your zone of excellence versus your zone of greatness?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and that hits hard or hits on point for me. There's like lots of things that any of us can do that we're good at, but is it our call? Is it what we're supposed? Is it the zone of greatness? Just because we can doesn't mean we should.
Mhm.
Or I doesn't mean I can. I mean I should. And so those are some of the things that hit me, and the importance of exercise.
Mhm.
And I've finally been making time to make sure that I get time for exercise, and it's as I knew, it's game changer. But to be experiencing that and getting the exercise in has been it's helped every aspect of my life.
Mhm. It does that. It really does that. Thank you for all of that. Yeah, this is one of those chapters where I look through it and I've got so much underlined and so much highlighted. And then some things I have with an underline, a highlight, and I drew a box around it in two different colors of ink, which means that there have been 4 times where it like really hit me, you know, over the years. And um I was thinking a lot. There's the quote that she says of sometimes I will write badly, draw badly, paint badly, perform badly. I have a right to do that to get to the other side. Creativity is its own reward. And I was thinking about how I didn't really do any painting in the month of my fast, and how last weekend I was but felt a very strong desire to be painting and to be doing things. And so I did a couple pieces where it was like maybe they weren't the pieces that I wanted them to be or want what I had in my head, and that the important part is the creating and the process. It is so not the outcome, and that I'm not responsible for the outcome. Like I'm responsible for being at the easel. I'm responsible for hands in the paints. I'm responsible for making the thing, but I'm not truly responsible for the outcome as long as I enjoy my time, because what she's saying, creativity is its own reward. It's the process. I I really like. And if I don't like the process, then we have a whole different other thing. But I'm not there to rush through a piece to produce. Um, she says in this chapter, to a large degree, my life is my art, and when it gets dull, so does my work. And I really like that. If all work and no play makes your artwork dull, it makes your creativity dull, it makes your interactions dull. Um, and so I think that's important to just remember. And I'll just along the lines of the process piece later on this same page, and it's just 180, she says, as an artist, my self-respect comes from doing the work. It really, again, not outcome, not whether or not somebody wants to buy it or someone tells you it's pretty or they like it, because really, who cares? Truly, who cares? Because it's, do you like doing the work? Does it feel like a joy to do the work? Does it feel like you're honoring what's inside of you when you make and create, when you come to the page, whatever that looks like. I know that she does in these first few chapters talks a lot about like the sustaining and the making money piece of things, but I think that there's something to that, even if we are not capital A artists, because on 181, she says, as an artist, I do not need to be rich, but I do need to be richly supported. I cannot allow my emotional and intellectual life to stagnate, or the work will show it. My life will show it. My temperament will show it. If I don't create, I get crabby. As an artist, I can literally die from boredom. And that as an artist, I do not need to be rich, but I do need to be richly supported. It's thinking about like trusting that if we do what is in our heart, not our head, but in our heart, what is calling us to do, which requires an extraordinary amount of discipline. It requires the discipline of coming to the page to mine your intuition and that inner wisdom of what is coming up, what is being asked of me, what am I connecting to. It also requires like meditation, getting quiet, prayer if that's your thing, like whatever like the getting quiet and listening piece is. We can't be supported if we don't sit in that place of uncertainty, the place of unknowing, and have the faith that it will come for us. And along those lines, I wanted to read you guys something, but I put it in the other room, so I want to grab it really quick. Hang on. So yesterday, I was teaching my morning yoga class, and I picked up Mark Nepo's book, The Book of Awakenings. And along with this trust piece of things, I wanted to read you this excerpt because I think it really ties into this part of the chapter. So it's from Mark Nepo's Book of Awakenings, and it is an excerpt from, oddly enough, July 20th, not June 20th. And it's called Learning to Float. When we stop struggling, we float. When first learning how to swim, I didn't trust the deep. No matter how many assuring voices I heard from the shore, I strained and flapped to keep my chin above the surface. It exhausted me. And only when exhausted did I relax enough to immerse myself to the point that I could feel the cradle of the deep keep me afloat. I've come to understand that this is the struggle we all replay between doubt and faith. When thrust into any situation over our head, our reflex is to fight with all our might the terrible feeling that we are sinking. Yet the more we resist, the more we feel our own weight and wear ourselves out. At times like this, I remember learning to float. Mysteriously, it required letting almost all of me rest below the surface before the deep would hold me up. It seems to me almost 40 years later that the practice of finding our faith is very much like that. We need to rest enough ourselves below the surface of things until we find ourselves upheld. This is very hard to do, but the essence of trust is believing you will be held up if you let go. And though we can practice relaxing our fear and meeting the deep, there is no real way to prepare for letting go other than to just let go. Once immersed, once below the surface, it is not by chance that things slow down go clear, feel weightless. Perhaps faith is nothing more than taking the risk to rest below the surface. That we can stay here only affirms that we must choose the deep, that we can't stay there only affirms that we must choose the deep again and again in order to live fully, that we must move through the sense of sinking before being upheld is what trusting the universe is all about. I think that a lot of this chapter, I think autonomy, she said it's recovering a sense of autonomy. And autonomy, oddly enough, means interdependent. Autonomy, true, healthy autonomy means trust and interdependence. And even if we don't have people and persons that we can rely on, although I hope we all do, I do believe the great creator, the universe, whatever you want to call it, there's interdependence there. If we trust, if we have faith, but you have to find that place of trust and faith and the letting go to get to that place. Anything strike anybody about that they want to share? Okay, I do want to also say there's just so much in this chapter. Around page 181, creativity is oxygen for our souls. Cutting off our creativity makes us savage. And then that's the beginning of that paragraph, and then the end of that paragraph says, we will react as well when well-meaning parents and friends push marriage or 9 to 5 or anything on us that doesn't evolve in a way that allows for our art to continue. We will react as if we are fighting for our lives. We are. We are.
I had actually I had that underlined as well, and I feel like that's part of my struggle, like I've been kind of struggling with like when do I appreciate what you said, Kristen, but when do I kind of step away from my current job and what that looks like. And I've had periods during this year where I felt literally like I was suffocating. That was really how I was feeling, like I was truly suffocating. And so this part about just it being oxygen, it's just such an interesting metaphor, right? Oxygen for the soul, being able to breathe. I think that's part of my struggle. I've just put so much effort in this 9 to 5 and feeling like there's something that needs to shift. And I actually will say this is the first time all this year, starting with the first of the year, I have been to the doctor more this year than I, I, I've had more blood work. I've been into the doctor just probably every month this year. And something's shifting, something's going on with me, and it's coming out of my body, although there's nothing that's we've been able to figure out like what there's nothing that's come up like a diagnosis, but something's just not quite aligned. And I think it's all related. It started in my gut at the beginning of the year, and it's just all I think it's all related. So that's that piece around oxygen for your soul that really struck me. Yeah.
Yeah. Twin Alva, I have been listening to so many podcasts about healing in all sorts, like cancer and all sorts of
Yeah.
other stuff. And all of them say that like the location of where disease concentrates in our bodies holds the key too. So if it like started in your gut, that's like the second chakra area, right? Like that's between your place of power and your the pelvic bowl, right? And so that's an interesting thing to look into. I mean, that might have some insights for you about what's going on. Yeah. Like breast cancer, you're holding the weight, you feel like you're holding the weight of the world, taking care of others, like not, like it's everything has its
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Our bodies are miracles, right? We just have to listen to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's so counter our culture to pause to actually listen and to do the thing that like the body is asking for, but the body knows.
Yeah.
But the body knows.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Any other thoughts coming up? Anything from anyone? Just looking through the rest of this chapter because I've got so much underlined. I'm like, okay, what all, there's so much I could say to you all. I mean, there's a lot of like little like sound bites from this chapter too that I think are really interesting. Like at the bottom of page 182, the first paragraph there at the end, it says, as artists, we are spiritual sharks. The ruthless truth is that if we don't keep moving, we sink to the bottom. The choice is very simple. We can insist on resting on our laurels, or we can begin anew. The stringent requirement of a sustained creative life is the humility to start again, to begin anew. And then on page 183, it's as artists, we are travelers, too heavily encumbered by our worldly dignity to invested in our stations and positions. We are unable to yield to our spiritual leadings. We insist on a straight and narrow when the artist's way is a spiral path. Invested in the outer trappings of a career, we can place the investment above our inner guidance. Deciding to play by the numbers, we lose our commitment to counting ourselves and our own goals worthy. Kind of want us to sit with that one for a second because I mean, it plays into, I do think, we know. I think so often we already know what the answer is. I think that it's so often it's absolutely not it's not a what is my intuition saying? It's that we don't want to listen to our intuition, what our intuition is telling us. Because what our intuition is telling us feels scary. It feels crazy. It feels like it is counter to the culture that we live in, because oftentimes it is. I think the most powerful intuitive messages we get they feel crazy to ourselves. They feel scary to tell our family, our friends, our loved ones that we've made this decision. This is what we're doing. It's not that we don't know what to do. It's that we're scared and terrified of listening to what that message is actually telling us to do. And this hits that on the head. Because if we ignore that intuition, if we ignore that inner knowing so long, that is how disease happens. That's how we end up with big regrets. And like, because this is what I'm completely immersed in right now is listening and reading to all of this stuff. What I'm finding out is 1 in 2 people, the numbers right now are 1 in 2 people will get cancer. Those are what the numbers are. And the more people I tell about what my story is, like the more I hear people be like, "Oh yeah, I had that," or "Yeah, I'm going through that," or "Yeah, I've been there, had," like, and it's just astounding. And the way that I mean, that's happening because our lives are so full of stress and because we don't listen to that intuition and that inner knowing about what we need to do. And I'm not saying we cause our own disease, but I'm saying like this to empower is that we can nip it before it gets too bad. I think we can heal it once it comes if we are willing to listen and to do the work. And I think that the little diseases that happen are the pebbles in the baseball bat. And I still even think that for me, I'm still in the baseball bat stage. Like this is me being told it's time to make some radical changes. And I know that if I'm willing to make the radical changes, listen to the intuition that, again, once again, I thought I already lived a pretty crazy radical life, but I think I'm being asked to go even further with that. And I think that if I don't follow that intuition, I think it will come back. I think it will get worse. I think it will but it is a spiral. Sometimes we have to learn the lesson and learn the lesson and learn the lesson and learn the lesson just in many different ways, which can sometimes be a little exhausting, but I think that is just part of the process. And I think that is the creative person's path of like, there's always like the onion never gets fully unpeeled. Like there's always another layer to the onion.
It's interesting to hear you talk about that because I was thinking, like, I've been sick a lot this year, and like when I'm not feeling well, then oh, I'm so open. Oh, I need to change. I need to. This is a message. And then after I get better, I'm like back into. Then suddenly I get back into the thing that made me sick. It's such a that spiral is something. And so as I talked about, like I forgot the other part that happened this year. I had the worst upper respiratory infection I've had probably in my adult life at the first of the year. That was after the gut. So first it started with the gut, and then it was all up here. And it's so interesting. Then you get better. You're like, "Oh, okay. And yeah, just so important to pay attention, right?
Mhm.
And I had made a decision that on May 29th night of next year, I was gonna walk away from this job. And then suddenly after I got better, I'm like, well, maybe I can stay for another couple of years. Maybe I can, it's so yeah, I just need to start to really tune in.
Mhm.
That's really helpful to think about.
Yeah. And just thinking about the layers or like coming back to the message, that's why we call it practice. Like when you think about doing yoga, we don't do yoga once and think that like, oh, we're never going to get creaky again or we're never going to need to stretch again. It's a practice. We need to do it multiple times a week. It would be great if we could do it daily. I don't know who has time for that, but whatever, that'd be really great. And this is a practice, just like not only tuning into our intuition, but honoring and making changes based on our intuition and staying with it is a practice. And, I think it's really apropos that we're coming to this conversation now in chapter 11, because next week will be our last chapter. And I think that the reminder that to keep the practice of this work going, to keep the morning pages going, which I've got something that will help with that. We've got the journaling coming up, workshop coming up, but that and keeping the artist dates up and finding community in some way of other people who want to do this work, I think is really important. Because staying in that community, staying in a place of practice, I just know that if I have people who, again, once again, back to the cancer stuff, but the fasting group. So Dr. Deming is it brought together a community of people who have worked with her. So I joined her membership, where we will meet and have a group call a couple times a month and meet with her mindset coach and stuff like that. And honestly, the part for me that's most important is staying in community with other people that think like me. Like, because I don't get that, like, most of my friends and family don't think that way, you know? And so having people that believe, like I believe that the intuition piece is this important, and staying aligned with that, and doing the work to stay aligned with that, is important. It's really important. Kristen, I feel like there's stuff going on up there. I can like almost see sparks.
It's like my writing like crazy, but no, there's so much of this that is like exactly what I needed to hear today. Even like every single piece of it, like even the like Tonella and the on May whatever of next year, and I'm like, when should like when is a good time to say it's time? There's reasons why we set those dates, but I'm like, I keep doing the same thing. I'm like, oh, just a little bit more would be but then not listening to the intuition because it's so scary and sounds so crazy and so not what I'm supposed to do.
And I would say that is the absolute thing you have to do. The thing you are the most afraid of is absolutely the thing that you have to do. Like that is the fear in these cases is the green light. Like that's the thing. That's the thing that you have to do, because it's going to keep coming up. So the way now my new lens is like, if you get a diagnosis that feels scary, like if you got the C word diagnosis, like what would you immediately change? Like, and let's say it's terminal, like what would you immediately want to spend the rest of your time doing? That's the thing that you need to be doing, and not going back on that. And doing about like you're saying, like when you get better, like forgetting. I mean, I just said to Philip last night, I said the cancer is the miracle for me. Like I've been given a miracle because I'm changing my life, and everything got real clear really fast on what's most important. I mean, I at least love my work, but there's some parts of my work that have to change. And honestly, there's some parts of my work I really want to bring back. Like that, like I used to podcast and I miss the podcasting. I don't want to do it the way I did it before because it was unsustainable. It was too much work. But, I just think about like, it seems crazy to do something that feels like it's adding one more thing, but like it feels so aligned, feels so aligned. And all of that, like that's deep listening. That's coming from here. That's like figuring it out when you don't even know what the steps are in front of you. You got to go towards the thing you're most afraid of. And you like when I say that, I know there's something in your head that is immediately there, probably for both of you. And Sarah, I can't see you, but probably for you too. Like that thing, like there's something that immediately came to mind where you're like, yeah, but it doesn't make any sense. Yeah. Yeah, and I would say, I feel really there's so much miraculous, not only about the cancer diagnosis, but getting to be a part of the fasting group that I was just a part of. And Dr. Katie Deming, if you guys aren't listening to her podcast, Born to Heal, yet do. I think she's going to be a really big, big deal in the future. I think the work that she's doing is just tremendous. But when she has a like a spiritual mentor who is an incredible like shaman. There's these books, The Teachings of Carlos Castaneda, if you guys have ever heard of those. They're from the 70s. It was this anthropologist. The way the books are written, it's like this anthropologist says he goes and studies with this shaman. That's not really what happened. He went to the area the shaman was, never met with the shaman, but met Don Javier. And Don Javier is actually Katie Deming, my fasting doctor's mentor, Don Javier was trained from like a very, very, very early age. Like at 10 years old, was like buried up to his neck in sand and left in the desert overnight by himself as a training exercise for being a shaman. And he has all of these crazy stories. About the trainings that he went. He sold them to the guy that wrote the teachings of Carlos Castaneda. And so he holds the frequency for Dr. Deming's work or her groups. And he's the shaman that did remote energy work for me during my fasting. So that's who I used. And I've never met him, but I can like feel the energy. I really can. I don't know. I don't even know how to explain it, but he told Dr. Deming when she decided that like she was getting all these inklings, like, I need to leave Western medicine. I can't be in this system anymore. She left, and all sorts of crazy things were, her husband wasn't supportive of it. Like they got a divorce because he didn't support the changes she was making. Her mom got cancer and died that year. And Don Javier was like, you're going through too much trauma right now. You need to stop and heal yourself. It doesn't make any sense. I know, like, that sounds really scary. Because she's like, I don't even have the money for that. Like, she downsized everything to be able to do what she's doing now, like going from like very high paid oncologist to someone who's just not working. And he said, you can't do anything until you go do your healing work first. And so she did a tremendous amount of she knew that was the right thing, even though she didn't want to do it. It was crazy, but like that radical listening to intuition and doing the crazy things, those are the things. And I think for most of us in this group, it involves using our creativity. And I think our creativity is just another expression of our intuition. What's coming up for y'all? This is big stuff.
I think what's coming up for me is that it's kind of scary. That date might be a little sooner than it's scary to think of that date, but it might need to be sooner.
Or a lot sooner. Yeah.
Yeah.
That goes back to the trust, the radical trust. And yeah. Kristen, how about you?
I've been, like you said, like knowing what I need to do and not trusting it. And it like every day there's something that just like further solidifies that I know, like even including like my therapist was like, what would you tell a friend to do in the same situation? And then I had a friend in a similar situation. um so but then when you connect it to like the healing work, one of my biggest struggles has been the like, I don't know the next steps, I don't know the path. And I feel like I need time to just heal, and I don't know what that looks like or what that means, and I'm struggling with the worthiness of, you know, and the guilt and the whatever, because to me it like feels like I just need to take a year to not worry about anything that I have to do other than being with my girls, which is what I want to do. But that just feels so crazy to me to be like, you know, like every time my mom calls, she's like, well, what are you got to go back to work soon. What are you going to do? What are you going to and I don't know, I just feel like I have my answer today if I trust it, that I just need to, it's okay to, you know, do what I've been calling do nothing, but it's doing the healing.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, the last piece of like healing work that I feel like needs to happen for me is what Dr. Deming did. She somehow got connected with this thing called Psych K, like psychology and then the letter K. And she's actually hosting a workshop for people in her community next week. It's a 3-day workshop, and it's like it's because they're on West Coast time. So for us, it's like, it would be like 12:30 to 6:30 in the evening type of thing. Like, I think it's like Wednesday through Friday next week. But it's, you reprogram your subconscious thoughts is what it is. I think therapy is really wonderful, and I feel like, and I've plugged it for years. I've even thought about being a therapist for years, and I'm like, it also is not working. I'm going to be really honest, it's not working. And so I know that I need to change the underlying unconscious beliefs that cause me to continue to think the way I'm thinking. And I know that's the next piece of healing for me. And so I'm doing this 3-day workshop next week because I want to lean into the trust and the intuition on a deeper level. And I am on some ways, but I want it like, I think there, I know this other layer is there, and I got a small taste of it, but there's more techniques that are coming up. So yeah, that's, I don't know, it just felt like an important thing to share with all of you because I don't know, because my intuition said share it. I don't know. Yeah. All right. Takeaways from today.
Well, my takeaway is to lean into that radical listening and to keep, I guess I'm really drawn to thinking about healing. And I guess that's just because so much is going on with my body, and just to really lean into that and listen to the messages.
Mhm.
I'm fortunate I've got some really great holistic practitioners. I agree with you about that. I mean, it's just so, I mean, just kind of leaning into listening to what I need.
Yeah. Thank you. Sarah.
My takeaway is really just leaning into, I don't know, I feel like maybe you said this in a different group, Alicia, but it's not just the intuition piece, but also that we actually do know, that we're just like, la, 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 la. So that part too, because a lot of times I'll be like, oh, I don't know. I really need to listen, but it's like, I probably know.
You know. And change can take time. From the time we know to when we do the thing, it can take time. Sometimes we have to get our nervous system on board with that change. And I think that's the hardest part. But I think recognizing, like, starting to shift your language of like, oh, I don't know. No, I know, and I'm working towards it. I know, and I'm going to set the date and I'm going to do it. And I'm going to move that timeline up if I need to. But like, yeah, I think that is part of it, a big part of it. All right, Kristen, how about you?
That was my takeaway. I know. I just need to do it. There's a theme too for me of like staying connected to community. Because yeah, I just need to stay connected. I have a tendency to just kind of get really introverted and turn into a hermit, and it's not good for me either. So I need to stay connected in order to have some balance.
Yeah, I get that.
Because it's not going to be built in with the dialing into Zoom calls every day anymore.
No. But maybe 100 days of raw. All right, you lovely women. The homework is read the final chapter, chapter 12, and do your morning pages and your artist date, and I will see you next Friday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you all. Bye.